Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mortgage Leadership Outlook, the Veterans Day edition, brought to you by our friends over at Caliber Home Loans. Caliber is just a huge supporter of the military. Obviously an expert when it comes to VA loans, but I think actually there's so much more, than I mean, it seems actually like you guys. You don't even focus on the business. You focus on the community, which is what we wanted to talk about here today. So with me today, we got Senior Vice President, National Director of Military Lending from Caliber Home Loans, Mr. Bryan Bergjans. Bryan, thank you.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting this on this holiday. This is a fantastic day for us to honor and celebrate the folks who have raise the right hand long before any of us and give us the opportunities to do the stuff we love to do every day. So I just want to say a big thank you to all the veterans and the veterans families out there, because it definitely is a team effort. And, we enjoy the stuff we do today because of you guys. So thank you very much.
Bryan, let me ask you, what is the significance of Veterans Day, and what could actually our viewers do to kind of honor and recognize veterans on today? And I know we're going to talk about some specific things about helping the military community, and just so you know, like if you're watching this now, we're going to talk a little bit about home loan education. So there are certain things actually that you should know about VA loans that are big myths that most people don't know. They're going to go actually a little bit about some of the recent changes with VA loans that just because of COVID-19 that have been often overlooked. We're going to go into that. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do actually as we're facing the season of giving coming up, and what you could do to support the military. And then actually we're going to talk a little bit about motivation and mindset for our originators, because listen, man, it's been a rough year. We've been beaten up, and while I know we've got a lot of business. We're grateful actually that we're in a good place actually to be able to help our economy out. But it's been a struggle. So talk to us a little bit about the significance of Veterans Day and what actually our viewers can be doing to honor veterans today, right now.
Well, first of all, let's take a step back real quick. I think with veterans in general, it's always nice to honor them on this day, but I think it's a great opportunity to start a tradition within your family and your organization to just thank veterans whenever you see them. I can tell you, for me, I don't look at Veterans Day as a holiday for myself as a military member. I look at it as a day to honor my grandfathers who served in World War II in Korea, my father who served in 82nd Airborne in the Army, the folks that came before me. And it's gotten to the point now in my family where when me and my family are out to dinner and we see somebody wearing their Korean War hat, Vietnam vet hat, or what have you, me and my kids all go and say thank you for your service. I think but you got to start somewhere, right? Like it's an uncomfortable thing to do in the beginning. It really is, because a lot of these folks that you're thanking, they didn't do it for the thanks, right? They did it because they're patriots. They did it because it was a calling. They did it because of various other reasons. The thanking thing is more of, a nice give back to that community, saying, hey, listen, I know you didn't ask for it, but, we really do appreciate, what you've done and the sacrifices that you've made over your time of service, so we can do what we do. So.
Yep, that's a beautiful thing. Listen, I do the same thing with my kids. We see actually, and anyone actually is wearing actually hats, wearing shirts, anything actually showing their commitment to service. I make sure actually that my daughters, know actually and go up to these guys and say thank you for your service. I think it's an important thing. Just that little thing right there is an important thing. So listen, we have some guests with us, and
we got some good guests.
to bring with us. So I'll bring you guys into this right now. So hold on for just 1 second.
Got some fantastic guests today.
First off, we have superstar VA originator Rick Bettencourt, who is someone actually besides actually being someone who's just a superstar originator, it's someone actually who really just gives and gives to the military community. He's got a great story about how he's become an expert in VA loans. And I mean, Rick, give us an idea, like what percentage of your business is VA loans?
Right now, it's about between 75 and 77% in a non-military market where we don't have any really active bases like you would see in a Fort Benning or Fort Hood or those types of geographic locations. So most of mine is directly through outreach with the military community, mostly veterans, but a few active duty because we do have some pretty active Coast Guard stations on the coast.
Fantastic. Awesome, man. That's great. And we're going to talk a little bit about actually VA loans. Obviously, you're an expert when it comes to this. But I want to bring in actually our special featured guest. We are blessed to have with us today Medal of Honor recipient, retired U.S. Army Captain Florent Groberg. Thank you so much for joining us, Captain. We really, really appreciate it. I know you've got a busy schedule. He just got off another interview. He's going on to another interview we've basically got him for another 20 minutes. Captain, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. It's always fun to work and join Bryan and Rick. Or Rick more so than Bryan, but I'm happy to be a part of this.
You guys are boring guys. I know. I've seen some of the antics that you guys have had. And by the way, listen, if you are watching this, you can catch some of the episodes where you could see Captain Florent joining Rick and Bryan on the Homeownership Heroes. We got three episodes right there. You'll see the link right there. Please make sure it's some great stuff. I mean, listen, you guys always seem to have a great job of being educate and have some fun, make it entertaining. Really, really appreciate some of the content you guys are putting out there. So, Captain, if you could talk a little bit about, what has been your exposure to VA loans yourself?
Well, it's my first home years ago in 2011 was a VA home loan. I was in active duty out of Fort Carson, Colorado. I didn't know what the heck I was getting myself into. I just knew that I'd rather be an owner than a renter. My limited knowledge taught me that owning something is better than leasing it. So, and my friends really like to lease cars, were trying to fight me on it. But in the end, I won. Because I bought a house, I put zero down, and it's costing me less than what I was renting, and then my friends moved into me, so they were paying me rent. So for me, it's pretty much free. So figured that one out. No, it was a incredible experience, honestly, as a first-time homeowner. The process was not as difficult as I thought it was going to be, but I needed to be educated, right? And so I'm the type of individual that I want to make sure I work with organizations and groups of people that can take the time to sort of educate me on the process, the full pause, and really go through the paperwork. And the VA loan, though, it was so simple. It was really, straightforward, and I had an incredible experience. And by the way, I just want to put this out before Rick and Bryan, right? My next house with you guys, right? So there's going to be a VA loan because the VA just changed their limits, so you can go a little bit higher, and so that's something I'm really looking forward to.
A little bit higher? How high can we go, guys?
You can go as high as the lender's willing to go.
Yeah.
It's limited by the lender. It's not limited by VA anymore,
which is good. That was long overdue. I can tell you that right now. That was, I know, and Rick, you could probably attest to this too. That was something that they've been trying to pack into some form of legislation for years. Yes. And every time it was about to get done, one of the little tidbits or pork that they call it being slipped into stuff would just kill it. So it was nice to see that come through, especially for our vets and transitioning military and our retirees that are trying to go to their forever home on the coasts. You know, this is a huge win for them. And unfortunately this year, you know, this was a January 1 kickoff for this. And unfortunately, due to COVID and all the other stuff going on this year, it's kind of been under the radar, and it's really a game changer for the program.
So listen, so obviously I don't think we're not paying attention to that as much as we should, and not taking advantage of that. What are some other things that you think most originators out there don't know about VA loans?
That could be an 8-hour. I mean, I teach courses across the.
Hold on a second. What are we talking about? What page do we want to go to?
You know, I'm wearing my NAM shirt. I'm a past president of the National Association of Mortgage Brokers, and I'm one of their instructors for the Certified Veteran Lending Specialist class, sponsored by Caliber. And I can tell you, I taught over the last 2 years probably 10 classes total, probably 300 to 400 professionals. And there's a lot that people don't know, and it's way too vast to really get into it in the short time that we have Florent. But you know, it's definitely important for a military personnel like Florent to interview their mortgage professionals so they understand, hey, does this person really have the vast knowledge that's required? Because there are always the VA loan, Bryan and Andrew, it's the story loan. So sometimes there's a story. If you don't know how to put the story together, that serviceman or that servicewoman may not get the loan.
Oh, without a doubt. And I can tell you, one thing that we've always, you know, our position's always been, you know, we're not subject matter experts, we're practitioners, because you're always learning, you're always educating yourself. The VA is like a moving target, right? A lot of times. And the handbook, unfortunately, is broad in nature, while it's important that it is, so underwriters and lenders can make, you know, good business decisions and good make sense underwriting decisions. But at the same token, you know, it's challenging for consumers like Flo, right? Because if they went and tried to educate themselves on the handbook, they would ram their head into a wall just of boredom. And then you got to rely on so-called subject matter experts or jack of all trades, masters of none, to walk you through that. Because, you know, when you're relocating across the nation, like, you know, Flo did, right, going to Seattle, you know, that's a stressful, well, you could tell us, I mean, how stressful was that?
Yeah, it's incredibly stressful, specifically, you know, when you're trying to figure out, like, what are my options, and, you know, how do I get there? Who do I trust? What do they know? You know, I think, like, you know, Rick and Ryan, you can get into it, like, you know, inspections, right? I mean, I've heard that from, VA loan, it's a lot more difficult to get, you know, through the inspection process, and, you know, you should really look at conventional because it's going to eliminate this headache, or, yeah, the buyer doesn't want to do any VA loans because of this. And it's like, why? Yeah. Like, you know, it's so that's some of these, I've heard that before when I was, you know, shopping for a home.
That's a great point, Flo. I mean, you know, I know by the way, I want to thank both of you for your service, Bryan and Flo. Thank you guys. Really inspirational for me. But I think it's important to realize that the military community is so tight knit. I mean, these veterans, these heroes of ours, they talk amongst one another very, very closely. And if one has a bad experience due to poor education, that's going to spread a little bit, and it may dissuade some of our heroes from using this incredible benefit, which I think is a top 3 behind post 9/11 in healthcare. So it's important that type of information flow, you're 100% right on the inspection, gets out there. And yeah, it doesn't have to be brand new. It can be a 1965 pink kitchen as long as it works, right? But that's a great point, Flo.
And to me, I want to go through that process because it's the right thing to do. So honestly, if someone tells me a buyer doesn't want to go through a VA inspection, it's not that the inspection is harder than any one other inspection. It's just they're doing their job, and they're making sure that they're protecting everyone. If someone wants to hide something, well, tells me that I probably shouldn't buy from that group. But it's about education, and it's super important to educate the consumers as well as everybody else that's involved, and that goes on both sides.
Hey, I've got a question. So what percentage of veterans take advantage of the VA benefit they have, and is it growing or declining annually?
We I just saw the numbers. I just looked at fiscal year 19 just ended, fiscal year 20. VA had a record year this year, 1.26 million VA originations for $375 billion in total production.
Yep.
Their best year by nearly 100%, and that's obviously driven by the low rates and refinance activity. But the purchase business has gone up, I think, 50% year over year.
Oh, since 2012, it looks like an airplane taking off on the runway. You know what I mean? It's and VA purchases have increased significantly year over year as well, with the best demographic, being that 18 to 30 year spot. They're becoming homeowners at a far increased pace than ever before. Like Flo was saying, they're starting to think like that. Veterans and active duty military folks are starting to think, why am I going to rent when I can buy? Why lease when I can own? And that mentality is sticking.
Yeah. So listen, guys, and I do want to keep going because we have only about another 11 minutes before Captain Florent has to leave us. So can you talk to us a little bit about what originators could be doing, to help the military community? If we can kind of actually dig into a little bit of that, how actually can originators that are watching this, as we're coming up with a season of giving, what are some specific activities that they could do?
Florent, I'd like to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think it's important to come from military.
Yeah, I think, there's opportunities to, and Bryan and Rick, you're doing it with the USO, right? In terms of connecting with the warfighters and their families through different events, by, through organizations that have, a touch on the pulse. And I think that's a really, really good way to connect, right? Get on base, have those conversations, do those seminars, have other organizations highlight the opportunities and really, educate. And I think that's there going forward. There should be an opportunity for this to become mandatory for all military, right? To talk about their, ability to utilize these services that are out there for them. They're posted on posts, right? You can find all sorts of things everywhere on posts, but no one's actually made it a mandatory sort of training or a mandatory, informational session. And if it's not mandatory, at least highly recommended. And so through partnership with the USOs, for example, that is a great way to connect and bring more awareness. And then, just making sure you touch, the different commands and build relationships. It's hard work. But I think Caliber, for example, is doing a heck of a good job connecting with the actual warfighters and those units around the country and building those relationships. So that's, to me, it's not easy. There's no easy solution. It takes work. It takes time. It takes commitment.
So now, can you do that? Can you have an impact? When you listen, Caliber, huge top actually VA lender with they have budgets, but the local small originators that are just out there trying to actually just do the good fight without actually budgets and all they've got is just elbow grease. What are some of the activities that they could do? And Rick, you might be able to speak about this because I know you've done actually a lot of this stuff yourself. Before you had any kind of budgets to be able to do any kind of things like this.
For me, it's I get kind of goo goo gaga when I hang out with veterans like Flo and Bryan, and so for me, it's always. I'm really honored to do that. I think that's the first thing that person's got to have is the true passion to affect positive change within a community that's done so much for us. If you're just in it to do the numbers, the math, to make money, to do units, these veterans, Bryan and Flo, you can agree, they'll read right through that, and they're gonna weed them out. So I think for me, what I did a lot was I did a lot of work with the expectation of zero gain. I didn't expect any compensation. I did stand downs. I did educational events. I went to if people asked me to speak, I would show up. If one veteran showed up, that was a win for me because it's one more that I talked to. And so I never did these stand downs or these educational events or these employment works seminars with the expectation of doing a loan that day. But eventually what happens is they go, who's this guy showing up every single time? Who's this loud, obnoxious, bald guy from Boston that is seriously just there all the time? And what happens is, in my state, very difficult to get on the bases because you got, where Caliber is a for-profit entity. You've got to be a nonprofit to get on there. And when you meet an E8 or you meet an 03 or a captain or a master sergeant or a command sergeant major or someone that invites you into their unit, that is just like, I just get giddy. And so I think, wrapping up and let Flo finish off here, I think you got to be willing to do a lot for very little.
Interesting. Yeah, Flo, any comments?
You got to have sincerity, right, Flo? Like, if they don't know that you're coming from a sincere position, you're toast. You're done.
100%. Yeah, it's a lot of closed door policy right off the bat, and so you need to earn trust and confidence of that group. And I think you said it best, Rick. It's about keep showing up at the door and show that you're committed and sincere about it. You have their best interest in mind, and you want to help. And I think that should be the way it works. I mean, that's what I would do. And build a network like anything else in life that you want to succeed. You got to really build that network, and you got to work for that network, and then you got to work even harder to maintain and grow that network.
Yep.
And listen, just I want to address there's a couple of questions that came in about VAs, VA loans specifically. We're gonna address that as soon as Flo leaves us, so we don't have to bore him with inside baseball talk. But yeah, so I think actually, so it's being sincere. Giving actually is there's a phrase I believe actually Ginger Bell talks about this, about giving hand down, and giving actually with the idea that you're giving without the expectation of anything coming back, and when you do that, the dividends get paid actually in ways that you can't even count.
I think it's also important for me. I couldn't serve because of my medical condition, but my whole family did. And I think it's important, if you come from a military family, I think you should share that with those that you're about to work with, because it helps establish a little bit of commonality. I mean, my dad's dad, my grandfather, he was with the 36th Infantry Division, 3rd Battalion, 142nd Regiment. His unit in World War II, they were part of the Italian campaign. His regiment, the 142nd, actually got to meet the Pope. And that's like, for me, and then Audie Murphy transitioned into the 36th after World War II as a reserve unit. So I'm so proud of that connection. I love to share it. And I think helping establish a bit of commonality might help with that networking that Flo's talking about.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I mean, and I'm wondering actually if you have any more tactical things that some of the originators could do, like specific activities that they could do as we're coming up to the season of giving, as actually people are finding out with maybe we'll even slow down a little bit in this business, who knows, but and we'll have actually more time to dedicate and do the things that we know we should be doing, as opposed to just answering the phones.
I think community outreach. So what do you say? Community outreach, community engagement. I always call it business development through community engagement, right? So it's a long-term play. It's something you don't think about today, but it pays dividends down the road. And the best part is you roll your sleeves up. You got a sense of purpose. You're doing something that you want to do and that you love to do it. You get to do it with other people who want to do it with you. And you build long-lasting, long-term relationships with folks that have a common purpose, and then the rest takes off, right? What do you think?
So specifically, what kind of community outreach? Like what actually some originators watching this right now? Like, fantastic. I want a community outreach. What am I doing?
I think I want to hear what Flo wants. What do you want from us mortgage professionals from a community outreach perspective? What would be meaningful for you as a military serviceman, and how we can help?
Well, I think you can get really creative. It's in a virtual world, so community outreach today means that it has to be on the virtual side, and so you can use platforms such as LinkedIn, right? And really go out there and talk and do an expose, right? Write an essay on why a VA loan matters today. If you're a veteran and you're renting and you're putting you're giving money to the man, but you have an opportunity to also, reinvest in yourself, here are the steps: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, now it's the lender limit, right? So you're no longer slave to a $757,000, limit on VA. Then you got to do a jumbo loan on top of it, right? If you want to go a little bit higher. 2, right? An explanation on interest rates. This is a heck of a great time to go out there and qualify some really low interest rates, specifically, potentially what are the incentives for first-time home buyers, right? What are the opportunities to do so? And then really sort of like talk about some of the scary things about buying a home, right? Becoming a homeowner, and eliminate those, mitigate those, or discuss them. And so you have to use those platforms to really educate. Or you do these partnerships like you're doing a community outreach with USO, where I went in with Bryan and had a conversation with I think 1,000 of our active duty and active duty families about serving and wearing uniform honor, but also about the opportunity to reinvest in themselves by purchasing a home, and you can do it. You don't need X amount of dollars, right, in your bank account to be able to actually own a home. That's why the VA loan is so incredible, imperative, and it protects you, and it makes sense. So those community outreach these are examples of community outreach that I believe could be successful.
Interesting. So it's education, and finding activities like related to like the USO. And I mean, is there any opportunities with local bases? Is there anything actually that someone could do actually to reach out to their local base, to kind of offer any kind of assistance or any resources that doesn't have anything to do with mortgages, doesn't have anything to do with financial education?
Well, I think there are. I mean, obviously, COVID-19 is playing a massive role in the ability to access those bases. But this is something that Bryan and Rick and I were trying to do in Nashville earlier this year, and we're potentially going to be doing next year, where we go out there and go on base and talk to everyone, and really kind of do an educational session, and I can talk about my experiences. But Andrew, Bryan, Rick, it's my time.
Thank you so much.
Right, man, thanks a lot. Hey, happy
appreciate
Veterans Day,
that.
brother.
Happy Veterans Day to everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you
Take
for your
care.
service.
Catch you soon, Flo. Later, buddy.
All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So, all right, listen, I mean, so like, if you want to comment a little bit more about actually any kind of community activities, we got a couple of questions that are VA loans related, so we could address those. But first off, any other things that you think actually that originators can do that are community focused?
I mean, every state. I mean, St. Louis, Missouri has got the tiny homes for veterans, right? There's in every single state. We have, and when you're a true practitioner and you're empathetic and you're compassionate about these men and women that serve for us, you'll find out which organizations are doing what. Because as you, again, back to what I said, as you attend the stand downs or the educational events with the expectation of no compensation, just to help, you meet these other people that run these organizations within your state or community, and then they begin to realize who you are. Now you're able to go in and say, oh, well, Bryan, with you set up the tiny homes. I would love to talk about maybe further developing that into a homeownership education type of platform. How can we do this? And then you start having these sit down brainstorms, and Bryan and I are going to be having a conversation pretty soon with a nationally recognized veteran organization, and it's going to be purely based on an educational platform. And that's where it starts. So there's dozens, if not hundreds, Bryan and Andrew, veteran organizations, nonprofits in your state. You just got to sift through and find out which ones are being the most impactful.
Yeah, your time is free, right? Like it's not free, but it doesn't cost you anything to donate your time to an organization, which is, important to the organization in which you're donating your time, because time is, your most important asset, by the way. Even though it doesn't cost you anything, you don't get it back. So just showing up and donating your time and rolling your sleeves up to some of these local, this is one thing that I've always beat the drum on, is where I think organizations sometimes lose focus on their actual commitment to a cause, right? So when veterans come around and it's Veterans Day or Memorial Day or 4th of July or what have you. You know, everybody wants to go online, look up for a national nonprofit, donate their $50 or, you know, Wounded Warriors or whatever, right? Boom, go. I've always come from the position of, I want to see my dollars at work in my local community, right? Nothing cooler than watching or seeing or touching or doing something that you know is going to have a long-term impact on your cause, right? With vets, you know, veterans in general. Because that emotionally and spiritually and about 50 other things pays you so much more than a loan will ever pay you, right? And the people that you meet along the way are the ones that you form your long-standing strategic relationships with under the, you know, under the umbrella of giving back in your local community. And those are long-lasting, standing relationships that you know, that stand the test of any market-driven, rate-impacted stuff. You know what I mean? Like people have, well, I got 15 referral partners, and guess what? Well, next year you got 12, right? Or the year after you got 18, and you're hiring and firing. These people stay in your crew, and they're in your inner circle forever. I mean, I can tell you right now, you know, something I started before I deployed to Afghanistan in 2014 with me and 17 realtors still goes on today. Every Christmas, it's what started with 17 volunteers is now over 1,000 that storm onto a veteran's home, and 300 folks, and they adopt every single veteran for Christmas, and we bring thousands of gifts to the veterans home every year. Okay? I started with 17 people after teaching a military relocation professional class, and people decided that they wanted to do more than just earn a designation. They wanted to go out in the community and do something. Yeah. And we picked a cause and we rolled with it. And the first year it was just us. And then the second year people wanted to get involved, and now it runs on its own. Oh, and long-lasting, long-standing impact, stuff like that is what I'm talking about.
And right? We're working on copying that here in Massachusetts.
Yep, but it's awesome. I mean, that's you. And you know, the cool part about something like that is what we were doing and what we thought we would get out of it was only a tip of what we actually got out of it, because I got to meet somebody who was actually depicted in the movie Band of Brothers. I got to meet Tuskegee Airmen. I got to meet people who are literally hands down, straight up badass heroes that when the time came did stuff that is beyond the
unfathomable.
And you know, and here they are in a home, never having anybody come visit them during Christmas or anything else. And I just thought of my grandfather, myself, my friends' families who all have people that serve, and thought, man, what, after doing all the stuff, the incredible stuff that you have done for this nation, to go out like that is embarrassing and shameful. So we as a community rose up, and I mean, now, instead of Christmas, now people take these guys on fishing expeditions, ball games. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable how the community rallied up around this one home on something that started because of an education class and a bunch of people who said, you know what, I want to do more.
That's amazing. And listen, and it's listen, you know, obviously you're military, you know, you're a Navy guy, but you do not have to be actually military to offer these kind of services. Listen, you know, Rick himself, yeah, I know he looks like a drill sergeant, but you know, he's
some of the greatest people I know have never served, and they're the biggest patriots and people I would, you know, run through a wall for.
Yeah.
Right.
We always feel like an obligation because guys like you actually risk your life for our freedoms, for our country. And we have to give back actually, you know, as much as we possibly can, because we didn't risk our lives. You did.
Well, you know, and to be honest, I mean, it's like, it takes a village, it takes a community, it takes a family. You don't just serve, your whole family serves. I mean, and it takes patriots to take care of your family while you're gone. I mean, it's just, you know, there's a lot of people involved. And
let's be honest, there's a lot of room for improvement, because we have states like Mass and New Hampshire and Vermont where our military, only 7% of our military in Massachusetts are using their VA loan currently. So we have an incredible underutilization ratio here in many states, and that's got to change. And I think it changes starting with what Bryan was talking about, what I alluded to earlier, and that is going out and doing a lot with the expectation of zero. And that's how it starts. And I think that's where, you know, we can answer the questions. Like, you're going to have some questions for us now, Andrew?
Yeah, sure.
We can answer those.
By the way,
we need to make sure we tactically hit some things too if these questions don't cover it, because I think these folks that are going to listen to this, you know, there's some stuff I'm sure that we can do.
Fire them up, Andrew. What do we got?
All right, for first question, is VA loan a FICO based? From Randy Carter.
Randy is an unbelievable advocate here in our state. What's up, buddy? So the Veterans Administration, the long story is the VA home loan guarantee never created a credit score. The lenders that lend the money, and VA doesn't lend the money, the VA guarantees 25% of the loan via a combination of the veteran's entitlement and or down payment if required. So there is no minimum credit score by VA. Caliber and all the other lenders set their credit scores, their risk tolerance. And right now, we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're starting to reduce those. So I can say Caliber right now will consider down to a 600. Are there lenders that will go a little bit below that? Sure are. But it's all a matter of the risk-based lending for the individual, the risk appetite for the lender. So that's the direct answer for that.
Yeah, you know how many times this is how many times have you gotten the old you know, folks go, well, I called the VA and they don't have a credit score requirement. Well, it's true, right? So, you know, when you tell somebody no, or somebody's been declined by a lender, I always tell customers, you know, if somebody tells you the VA declined you, you should always raise a red flag.
Because they don't.
It's actually the lender that declined you. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
All right. Next question from military veteran lending, which is basically a great resource. By the way, actually, it's a Caliber supported resource. I threw up the website if you saw it before. Caliber has a ton of resources. You know, whether you work for Caliber or not, it doesn't make a difference. There's lots of actually resources that Caliber puts out there. Check out their website. Make sure you check it out, calibermilitarylending.com. But from the military and veteran lending page, what recommendation would you give veteran planning to retire in the next year, looking to make a home purchase?
Good question.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this piece, but don't freak out, right? Because if you plan accordingly and have your ducks in order and your paperwork in order, this actually is not that big of a deal. From the standpoint of, number one, you need to make sure that you can afford this home with your retirement income, right? Number two, I was talking about do a forensic analysis of your finances. So I'm thinking long-term, do not sandbag yourself, because the timing of when you're getting out and the timing of when you actually get out and when you're going to buy a house will also dictate a lot of things. But do yourself a favor, do a forensic analysis of your finances. Make sure that you can afford to live in the place that you want to buy with your retirement income and whatever variables that are involved. I see this time and time again, folks don't really consider that, and they go in extremely aggressive with a lot of assumptions that they're going to have quick jobs, they're going to pick up jobs here, do this, or the spouse is going to work or whatever, and you just can't make such a large leap on assumptions.
There's guideline requirements that you have to follow as well too. You know, we're going to get an LES statement from a serviceman or servicewoman that's going to say, well, they're retiring or they're ETSing, getting out of the military within the next 6 months. Well, we've got some extra steps that we have to cover, have civilian employment, because I can't use the active duty income because they're going to be ETSing within 12 months. So there's work that needs to be done there. To Brian's point, a forensic analysis and doing some serious research into your finances. Also work very hard to secure civilian employment. If you're not going to be retiring, if you're not going to have the pension that Brian's talking about, and you're maybe 12 years in, 10 years, or whatever it might be, you got to make sure you've secured civilian employment, because that's going to be, at the end of the day, this is a benefit. It's not a loan program, and too many mortgage professionals out there treat it like a loan program. This is a legitimate CFR, Codified Federal Regulations benefit that our men and women earned. And so therefore, if employment continuity or employment stability is not there, and you have a foreclosure as a result of poor planning and non-forensic analysis, you will lose a portion of that benefit, and most likely forever, and therefore inhibit your ability to use it again. Not saying that you can't, but it would make it more difficult. So Brian's suggestion of a forensic analysis is spot on, and I only add to that you must, if you're retiring, ensure that your retirement's sufficient. If you're not, then you must have secured civilian employment, so that way we can use that income. And you can use projected income. We've done that before, where the veteran's getting out in 3 months, but he's already secured a job at Raytheon or Boeing, and his salary is X, and we know that, and we document it properly. We're good. That's okay. But that's I think Brian will agree. Very important to work with someone that closes multiple VA loans on a monthly basis, not that just does like 3 or 4 a year, if that's your situation.
Planning is so important with this, right? This is one thing I always tell folks when they're working with customers like this. It's like, or they're working in this demographic, is when you have a customer base, you need to tell them they know when they're getting out. I've been doing this military thing for a long time, and I can tell you the planning process of retiring is not just you decide tomorrow I'm punching out and I'm walking away in 3 months, right?
That's a great point, Brian.
Yeah, it's a process. So if you know that this is the process and you want to move back home to Charleston or Jacksonville or St. Louis, Missouri, which there's been crazier things, you know what I mean? Then you need to strategically plan for this.
Correct.
You know what I mean? My suggestion would be, if you ever have a customer like that way before they hit that 1 year mark, they find a location and wherever they want to go. Hopefully they're married, and they send the wife and the kids there, and then they follow up after the fact, and then they move back. I've seen it happen before. We've done it in the past a ton of times. Most of that is a reward for proper pre-planning.
Plan, you send the wife and the family back to the place that you're going to settle roots.
Yep.
You close on that with your active duty income, your BAH from your local duty station, and the wife and the family satisfy the owner occupancy requirement that VA has established. So that is how you win, and you get to use your income, and you don't have a stressful.
You do that outside your 12 months. So 18 months out, you're like, hey, I know I'm getting out. This is going to happen. You go and do that transaction, boom, you hit your 12 months, you move back home, you're retired, collecting a pension, everything's done, you're good, nobody's, freaking out.
Fantastic. So we're gonna take one more question here, then we'll kind of close this up with some just kind of motivation. Actually, some things that we could do to kind of just keep a positive mindset, through the giving season. So this next question comes in from Twitter. Can you guys explain how refi would look when we added deferral because of limited income?
Deferral.
I'm assuming actually probably a forbearance.
Yeah.
Like a COVID my guess and
COVID.
I just ran into this. So all right. So VA changed the seasoning requirements on VA loans in 2019. Okay. So we're very lucky here at Caliber to have some really super smart people that have been in the VA world for many, many years. So I just had this question. If the individual had a VA loan before the forbearance or the deferral. And that particular VA loan, they had made 6 or more mortgage payments on that VA loan, and they went into forbearance. Okay. What's going to end up happening is they will have to work out with their lender how the forbearance forgiveness will work, whether it's spread out over time, attached to the end of the mortgage, or they pay it lump sum. They first have to do that, but there is no seasoning requirements on that individual as far as the mortgage goes. They can refinance right away. So, but they must satisfy the forbearance requirement with their current lender.
Got it. Fantastic.
Anything you want to add to that, Brian?
No, well, listen, I've answered so many questions about forbearance that, my first and foremost thought is anybody, make a mortgage payment. If you can figure it out, make it, right?
It's a lot easier.
Makes it a lot easier. I don't think it's unfortunate. I know that the circumstances are different for everybody, and a lot of people got, just crushed by COVID and shutdowns and everything else. But the impacts, the downstream impacts for going into forbearance, as blind as some had to, right, have really messed some long-term plans up for people because the consequences were never established prior to. This is what happens when you have people in DC telling people to go into forbearance for relief without the people who actually set the policy and guides riding shotgun with them.
And Brian's spot on. And as someone that's been involved in the legislative side of the mortgage business for nearly 13 years, I can tell you, VA stepped up, and VA was one of the first to provide clear guidance on the Ginnie Mae securitizations on how forbearance will work. VA stepped up very early on in March, early April, and said, this is how it's going to be done. They sent a memo out to all the servicers and lenders like Caliber and said, this is what's going to happen. That's how you do it for our military men and women. End the story. And so, Caliber was able to implement guidance very quickly for our military servicemen and women who had to, take in forbearance. So it's been working out pretty good for us, but it was tough.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, guys. So listen, let's wrap this up. Just give us a little bit about what can we do actually just stay motivated, because man, this year I'm talking to so many people that are just burnt. I mean, really, Rick, how much more volume did you do this year than you would do in a normal year?
A lot. We had it was my best year, production wise, and I don't really like to talk production on these types of calls.
I know,
especially what we're talking about, helping veterans out and whatnot. I think if we're speaking to the originator, you guys, I think what's gonna set people aside are those that become very niche specific in the years to follow. We're gonna come out of this refi boom, and rates, there's gonna be no more refis, and we're all a little heavy on refi right now. I'm about 35, 65, and I want to switch that, which I will, but I branded myself as an educator, as a practitioner, as an advocate, as an outreach specialist. Before I talk about, I'm a mortgage professional, right? And in fact, if I was to sit down with a Brian Bergjans, who's a veteran, and I'm going to do his loan, I consider myself more of a benefit administrator than I do a mortgage professional. So I would say,
that's great.
I would say, listen, originators, we're coming through this. Think about branding yourself, redefine your specialty, pick a niche. I'll give a shout out to Dave Savage, a mortgage coach. Him and I did an interview last year, and he's like, Rick, niches are so important, and he's got tons of LOs out there that have found niches. We have renovation specialists, we have VA practitioners, we have first-time home buyers, you have reverse mortgage specialists. So I think that's going to be something I would tell an originator, because there's going to be a slew of VA purchase transactions in the next several years. Lots of real estate professionals that are afraid of it. They need help, and they're going to rely on people that know the benefit. And I think that's something I would say, gear up for a strong marketing push in Q1, focus on a niche, but don't BS anybody. If you don't know it, be honest. But if you want to learn it, we're here to help.
Yeah. They'll sniff it out. You don't know it, text it. They'll
They
sniff
will.
it
I mean, you've got veterans. Sometimes you come across some really gnarly, salty heroes, and they're like, I can tell why you're here, and that doesn't sit well with me. And hit the bricks. It happens.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing that I do know. I've been blessed to have traveled significantly over the last almost 5 years, 4 years before COVID, and have had an awful lot of individuals who are willing to listen to the stuff that came out of my mouth, shockingly. But I say that jokingly because
well, you tied us up. We were forced to, but
yeah, I kind of say that jokingly because when you, as a mortgage professional or someone that's a practitioner in this industry, I don't care if you're a real estate professional or whatever, but when you're out trying to educate people based on the fact that they are uneducated on a certain topic, especially when you're around a bunch of A-type personalities, that's a tough road to go, right? But what I did find along the way is that both mortgage originators and real estate professionals are both not as up to speed on the VA program in general as much as one another, right? It's like the blind leading the blind. And that's no fault of theirs because I call it unconscious bias. A lot of the knowledge that they have been given has been a hand-me-down stuff from folks who have been in the industry for a long time.
Forever.
Experienced so much crap around the program that they have branded into their brain that it's a subprime or the appraisers are bad or whatever. Now, I will tell you that it's not as bad as people make it out to be. And to Rick's point, get a niche. But here's the cool part about being in the VA and having that as your niche. VA is without a doubt the one program that a realtor would send to a subject matter expert or a practitioner and not even worry about upsetting their referral partner. Without a doubt. I can tell you, I've spoken to thousands and thousands of realtors, and I can tell you that 99.9% would raise their hand when I said that, because it's a fact. It is 100% a fact that a realtor, when they think veteran, think military, they want to send that to someone who knows what the hell they're doing and not worry about sending it to a jack of all trades, master of none.
And I'll tell you, it's the VA loan itself. We could do this another time, but we could do a 30-minute breakdown of why it is literally the best loan option for a seller to accept in a purchase transaction situation. But hands down, it is the best option.
Yep.
And that is part of the stigma that's out there, is that the been doing this 30 years, 40 years types of commentary does not lead merit to the recent changes that VA has made. And we'll close with this, and maybe it'll be a little cliffhanger for another time, Brian, but I'm just going to say one. I think you know the word I'm going to say, that it's a shock and awe word for all real estate agents: Tidewater. I'm just going to say Tidewater is the most amazing piece of the VA. If you don't know it, we'd love to teach you about it. And it saves deals all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
We got a shameless plug, Homeownership Heroes. Tidewater has been covered in Homeownership Heroes. There, nmpLink.com /Homeownership Heroes. All the episodes are there. Check it out. Actually, you'll learn about Tidewater. You'll learn about more opportunities on what you could do to to give back to the military community. You're going to learn about VA loans. You're going to learn actually a lot of things. And so you have that. You'll also have another great resource, Milspouse Mondays.
I love that.
Oh my goodness, I got to spell that correctly. Let's bring that back up here.
I'll tell you right now, and if there's any active duty personnel or milspouses on this show watching right now, I just want to say I think my eyes were opened up at the MIC conference last year, Brian, and I think the military spouse is hands down one of the most amazing, strongest human beings I have ever met in my 45 years on this planet. And I can't tell you how much respect I have for a mill spouse, what they have to put up with. And I know your wife is one of them, but I'm blown away, and I'm so honored to be a part of this Mill Spouse Monday series. It's my favorite. They're amazing human beings.
Hey, how about some of the questions? Those are heartbreaking. Some of the questions are actually heartbreaking to me, because I'm like, so just to close this thing out for all the mortgage folks listening to us, and maybe potentially real estate, any industry professional, one way you can give back is just educating yourself on the benefit. Educate yourself to where you know the right questions to ask. Maybe you don't feel comfortable doing them, but you can pass them to a subject matter expert. But I can tell you, just educate yourself on the basics of VA, the right questions to ask, some of the pitfalls and some of the myths. That way you are really giving back to that demographic, because there are folks out there who literally tell veterans to not use their VA home loan benefit, which is a disservice to the folks who raise their right hand and put their life on the line for you every day. And I can just tell you, if you want to give back, that is the first thing you can do, is educate yourself on this program. And there's a lot of resources available for you. You can reach out to Caliber. We are a resource. I don't care what company you work for. We get people from all over, any company that can reach out to us, and we're more than happy to walk people through stuff, because it's a pay it forward type of a deal.
Rick, you said something there that really just says it all. You're a benefits administrator. If you focus on that, being actually an expert, becoming actually immersing yourself, so taking actually, so we have these certified military homeowner specialist course that we offer through NMP. It gives you just the basics to understand actually some of the acronyms, so you can understand the basics. NMP has a course actually where it goes a lot deeper and goes into the VA program. That's how many days is the NEMB course?
So National Association of Mortgage Brokers, we started this under my presidency. I got to thank Bryan for Caliber sponsoring it every single year.
Yeah,
it's an 8-hour class, and it is.
I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I go, yeah, it's the real deal. It's the real deal.
We have 2 instructors, me and Jeff Wilson. Will come out, teach you. It's an 8-hour class. It's real deal. It's a deep dive. The average passing grade on a closed book test, mind you, the average passing grade is about a 78, 80. And the actual passing rate for the class is about an 85 to 90% we have passing, because it's not easy. Yeah. I want to thank Ken Bates and Jeff Wilson for helping me kind of put that together. Ken was a major contributor, not to say wasn't Jeff, and Caliber being a sponsor. So it is a great class. And if you're a mortgage professional and that's kind of what you want to do, we've gotten testimonies that said, Rick, I would not have been able to close the deal had I not taken your class and learned about that particular provision in the under MPRs or whatever it was. So reach out to namb.org. I would love to be a part of your education in your company.
Fantastic. All right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And Rick, thank you for your service to the people who have protected us. And Bryan, thank you for your service. Captain Florent, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate that you're able to spend some time with us. I mean, it's not very often that we have a Medal of Honor recipient, join us. So it's just we're very blessed today. Remember, go out there, not just today. Thank actually, anyone you see that's a veteran, but try to do it every day. Make it a thing actually that's a part of actually your life. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. All right, and I'm Andrew Berman from National Mortgage Professional Magazine, coming to you for another Mortgage Leadership Outlook, where we come to you with the greatest leaders in the mortgage business, coming to you live every Wednesday, 4 o'clock East Coast time, 1 o'clock Pacific time. Everyone, have a great season of giving.